So we're off at the beginning of the assessment here. We've decided it's going to be a light mock test format, very similar to the driving test. The learner is going to follow the road ahead at all times unless signs and directions tell them otherwise, and I'm going to give them directions as they would have in the actual driving test. We're coming up to the end of the road and turning left. Nothing really to worry about there, all done very nicely, and seeing the correct position to pass the parked vehicles on the left making their way down the road. With a reasonable amount of progress. Continuing to pick up speed, nice and confident through the crossroads back there. At the end of the road, at the roundabout, we're going to be taking the third exit right. Parked vehicles on the right here means that there could be an obstruction, and this vehicle is on to our side, but my learner moves away nicely to the near side to give them adequate space to continue. Building up speed again here, it was third gear on the roundabout. And just with this meeting situation in third gear, it's not really the right approach, so I do intervene just because it would seem that I hadn't quite planned that as well as they could have. At the end of the road, turning right. So my intervention was to lightly use the dual brake. I don't think a driving examiner would have done that, but I did because I don't know this driver very well, and I wanted to make sure that with the learner coming towards us, risks were reduced as much and as far as possible. As you can see, there's a good distance between the car in front and us, so that's nice to see. There is a bit of a slope here, so it's good to be aware of the possibility of people rolling back. We get going nice and promptly, which is good because the lights don't stay green for long. And the driver quickly and correctly goes into the first lane. And again is starting to build up speed nicely. So they asked for confirmation here. They seem to be unsure how to cope with the choice of lanes. Going into the first lane is fine, although as you can see they would have made more progress in the second lane. But in the second lane, just as that driver shows, they would have to deal with the merge afterwards. Now look behind and you can see there's a driver getting really close into a space where we are intending to merge. And in order to control that risk, I put the signal on, the right signal, just to try and keep that driver away from them. The problem is that the driver just hadn't seen that situation developing, and because of that they weren't aware at all of the risk around that situation. So if that driver behind had continued to challenge and compete for the space, they would not have been aware of that driver's presence. Coming into town, we are going to join the roundabout gyratory and take the first exit left. Now here something unusual happens, and they cope fairly well with this. Slightly overreact and deflect towards the pavement, getting quite close to the curb. But it's not that bad. Taking the next road on the right. Good position to wait for the oncoming vehicles. Into the side road nice and cleanly. So we pull up here. We just have a very brief discussion about what's happened, just to be reminding the driver to pay more attention to what's around them, particularly what's behind them. To the end of the road, the directions to turn right at the end of the road. Now they're getting perilously close to the junction and not positioning quickly enough to the left to go back into their side of the road, so I do have to remind them verbally to change their position. Nice and briskly out of the junction. And again, picking their speed up well here, making good progress. keeping a good distance going between them and the vehicle in front. Good to see respect for the keep clear markings. Several times when they've stopped in the road, they've just left the car in neutral. And when you are waiting for a period of time, it's good not to be in neutral, but to have the handbrake on, which they hadn't done. And I just remind them of this once more. So the reason for that is to be in neutral with your foot on the foot brake. There's always a possibility that you're not ready to go or the car rolls back once you release the foot brake. Now the signs and the road markings and the speed limit here suggest that there is going to be much more to do with a busy area and a mix of road users, including pedestrians. Look at the pedestrian on the right. We're starting to get very close, a bit too close to call, so I do stop the car for the driver. As the pedestrian seemed to be on their phone more than looking around, we had to stop for them. And they were within range of the crossing. But the driver hadn't seen that pedestrian getting close. We're going to be taking the next road on the left. And remember that the driver needs to be following the road ahead at all times. As they turn into this side road, they need to take information from all the available sources to position correctly. And there's multiple opportunities to do that. But if you've noticed, it's not happening at the moment. Getting closer to the junction, and it's still not happening. So as we are in the left lane, rather than changing lanes at the last minute, I tell the learner to simply turn left here. It gives us an opportunity to go round and to see if the learner is able to correct the error on the second pass. into another one-way street, picking up speed, just dropping speed slightly, but then increasing speed here, which isn't the best response when you have people potentially walking out in front of you. A little bit confused in terms of how to respond to those drivers getting out of their cars. At the end of the road, turning left. We're in the correct lane. Chance to respond to the pedestrians on the crossing. That's done nicely. Slightly out of position here, looks more like they're going straight ahead or right. Adequately covered and corrected. So again, we're going to turn left into the side road with a reminder to follow the road ahead. It's the nature of this road that they're turning into. Some good clues that it's a one-way street. Let's have a look. So we don't have any give-way markings. We've got the one-way street signs on poles left and right. And on the floor we've got a head arrow on the right, left arrow on the left. So it quite clearly is a one-way street. And they've been reminded to follow the road ahead. They should now have remembered from last time and start to position over, but they haven't, despite the road being clear. So I have to remind them to change lanes so that we actually do go ahead this time. They did actually ask for confirmation that they go under the railway bridge, which is correct. Now, for some reason, we stop here. They're not sure where to go. There wasn't any reason to stop. They did affect the drive behind. And they start to question which signs they should be following, but they weren't given that task. So I'll just remind them at the roundabout to take the first exit left. To try to keep them on the route that I want them to go on. Bit close to the curb, coming off the roundabout. The next thing we're going to do is to turn right into the car park just before the roundabout. I do give them clear directions and instructions here with a little bit of detail just to help them out because they seem a little bit confused by the area. So its speed here, we're really a bit too fast, getting a bit too close, not really enough time to turn. There's that red car coming towards us, so I do take them out of the flow of traffic and pop them into the hatched area as our refuge area. From this point on, I'm just trying to consider whether it's possible that they will be ready for their driving test, which is in a couple of days' time. and I feel that there's too much work to do to be certain of passing and to be prepared as a safe driver. They substantially need to take more information from the road and signs so that they can organise a better response. And a lot of this comes into the driving areas of anticipation and planning. And they don't seem to be that confident when trying to use their judgment to make a good decision. And so, all in all, a lot of the driving that I've seen up to this point is quite reactive rather than being proactive, which means that when they can do something better, they're not ready to do so. And I'm sure that they will be able to sort these issues out, but in these areas of driving, it normally takes a lot more time than a couple of lessons to fix, because these involve thinking about what you're doing and sorting out strategies, developing problem-solving skills, and consideration of what the practical activity of driving really entails.